This presentation is about network science, giving a small overview, mainly focused in some metrics. I will start by presenting some concepts, measurements, tools, application, and also challenges. In the context of network science, it is important to relate to complex networks. These fields of studies range from telecommunication networks, computer networks to biology, semantic, and social networks. And specifically, for example, social networks, the purpose it is to mapping and measuring of relationship and flows between people, groups, organizations, computers, URL, and other connected information and knowledge entities. Context, it is also interesting to analyze that according to the specific field of study, the terminology may change. We have vertex and edges in mathematics, but in computer science we have nodes and connections or links. And for example, in physics, we use site and bound. So there is a great range of terminology that may be used in this context because there is not a uniformity of the network concepts because they may be used in different fields of work. Vertex nodes or actors are represented by dots. They are essential elements of networks. But in order to have a network, those nodes must be connected by links. Those edges, arcs, links, or relationship may be undirected. If we associate some weight to the edges, arcs, or links, they are weighted, but they continue without direction. For a specific edge, we may identify one or two directions. A possible way of representing networks is listing all the nodes and then the edges that connected the nodes. Another way of representing is using a matrix. In this case, the values may be weights and the nodes are index or keys. The measurements may be related to the networks or may be related to specific nodes. For example, the degree of a node in a network is the number of connections it has to other nodes, and the degree distribution is the probability distribution of these degrees over the whole network. Related to the network, we have the following measurements, among others. For example, the average degree is the average number of links per node. The average weighted degree is the average of sum of weights of edges of nodes. The distance between two nodes is defined as the number of edges along the shortest path connecting them. The average distance is the average of distance between all pairs of nodes, and the network diameter is the maximum distance between any pair of nodes in a graphic. It is also the largest shortest path distance in graph. Modularity is one measure of the structure of networks graphs. It was designed to measure the strength of division of networks into modules, also called groups, clusters, or communities. Connected components, or just components of an undirected graph, is a subgraph in which any two vertices are connected to each other by path, and which is connected to no additional vertice in the supergraph. Networks may be also associative or dissociative. For example, social networks are highly associative. It means that high-degree nodes are connected to other high-degree nodes. Typically, technological are dissociative. It means that high-degree nodes are connected to low-degree nodes. Those are some of the measurements related to specific nodes. Clustering coefficient is a measure of the degree to which nodes in a graph tend to cluster together. Centrality refers to indicators which identify the most important vertices within a graph. For example, the most influential person in a social network, key infrastructure node in the internet, or in urban networks, and super spreaders of disease are just possible examples of what we call a node with high degree of centrality. In degree centrality, we use popularity or prestige. Out degree centrality means gregariousness. In connected graphs, there is a natural distance metric between all pairs of nodes, defined by the length of their shortest path. The farness of a node is defined as the sum of its distance to all other nodes, and its closeness is defined as the reciprocal of the farness. Thus, the more central a node is, the lowest its total distance to all other nodes. Betweenness is a centrality measure of a vertex within a graph. Betweenness centrality quantifies the number of times a node acts as a bridge along the shortest path between two other nodes. We may also call it network broker. Eigenvector centrality is a measure of the influence of a node in a network. It assigns relative scores to all nodes in the networks based on the concept that connections to high-scoring nodes contribute more to the score of the node in question than equal connection to low-scoring nodes. A high eigenvector score means that a node is connected to many nodes who themselves have high scores. Are just some of the tools that may be used in the context of uh, social network analysis and also in the broader perspective of network science. Are just some of the applications of network analysis, for example, in crime study, gangs and organized crime, for example, research collaboration between researchers, specific researchers or research groups, paper citation, social media study, for example, Facebook and LinkedIn and so on. In fact, several years ago, they also it was possible to analyze our own network. Nowadays, it is not possible. And for example, team sport cooperation, for example, relationship between the players when they are in a match. And health and disease spread. This is something that nowadays it is widely used and analyzed. Capital participation, how the investors participate in capital, and also how companies have cross participation, equity investment, internal communication, commercial relationship between companies. there are several restrictions to the use of those techniques. The most important here, it is not the technique. This is just mathematical approach that can be easily calculated. We have several tools that are easily used, but there are some restriction. For example, the internal information, then the secrecy of a business, then the general data protection regulation also that impose some restrictions. We cannot, for example, collect information about students freely, and this kind of information where we have, for example, want to know what it is the relationship between, for example, a student or a person that is working in a company and so on. Then there is also some complex conceptual complexity in some specific situations. For example, the meaning of a specific edge may be very complex. We may have some relationships, of different kinds of relationships that make complex those types of approaches. And then I think that what it is important and interesting, it is that the main value of this approach, it is obtained by integrating with other approaches in data science and other disciplines. When using Python, those are the main libraries that must work together. Pandas to manipulate and obtain information about a data set, Matplotlib to have the plots of the networks, and NumPy also, it is a very useful library that must be used in the context of network analysis. Concluding, I have presented the main concepts related to network science, and specifically I analyze some of the measurements not only related to the network but also to the specific nodes. Then I show some of the tools that may be used, some applications, and also challenges, and I concluded with the main libraries that may be used in the context of Python.